Controversies from Jersey right up to North Jersey. What? You're saying? Wait, North Jersey? Listen, I'm a Jersey guy who's always been comfortable in Rhode Island because I consider this to be North Jersey. Or if you want to be provincial or just proud of the state, we can call Jersey South Rhode Island. There are so many common ground behaviors. It's unbelievable. So we'll get into that here. Toot Sweet. Great to have you in to Dan Yorke State of Mind. Thank you very much for tuning in. Weeknights 7:30, repeat at 11:30, and you can find online every show after we broadcast at foxprovidence.com/myritv. State Representative Tim Williamson, former, is my guest tonight. Tim is back to kind of give us some perspective on how the sausage is made at the State House as we begin a new year. I've got some thoughts and have had some thoughts, and Tim always has some unique thoughts. And I also want to find out what Tim thinks about this incredible controversy coming out of New Jersey, which heads my rundown tonight. It is a Christie crisis of enormous proportions, or an opportunity. And then, because I wanted to put 5 C words back to back to back to back to back to back when I wrote this earlier today, Christie's story has a Cranston comparison. I shall elaborate. And they got 40 bills in. It's just the beginning of stuffing up the entire system. And we always want to fight the poverty. But what are we doing? What are we doing on the other side? All right, let's dig in. So the headline today in the Washington Post is pretty profound, right? This was incredible. Christie apologizes for scandal, fires deputy chief of staff, ousts top political aide. My guess is there'll be some more. This is all about a story that goes this way. The mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, Fort Lee is right at the foot of the George Washington Bridge, reportedly didn't support Chris Christie for re-election. Well, guess what? Christie's a Republican and this mayor is a Democrat. Now, there have been a lot of Democrat crossover for Christie. He's trying to show himself to be the, across the aisle type of guy. And what happened is that back in September, prior to the election, some of his staffers, frustrated that that mayor wasn't in on the team for Christie, tried to send him a message, it seems. And they ordered the 2 of the lanes getting onto the bridge in Fort Lee to be closed, the driving lanes. And so there was an administrative edict that came out of the Christie office to the Port Authority to close down the lanes. For 4 days, it was all jammed up, and some people had some serious problems, and there's some allegations that the traffic congestion may have cost the life of an elderly person trying to get to the hospital, and oh, what a mess this whole thing is. Absolutely crazy. So the governor didn't believe he had any ownership of this. In fact, when this thing became an investigation, because people were talking about it, even on the General Assembly side down there, he's pooh-poohed all the investigations. He laughed at them. In fact, the reason he laughed at them was 3-4 weeks ago, he had a staff meeting, which only buoyed his confidence that they had nothing going on.
I brought my senior staff together, I think about 4 weeks ago, tomorrow, and I put to all of them one simple challenge. If there is any information that you know about the decision to close these lanes in Fort Lee, you have 1 hour to tell either my Chief of Staff, Kevin O'Dowd, or my Chief Counsel, Charlie McKenna.
This is what the governor said in his 1.5 hour, you heard me right, 1.5 hour press conference today, where he laid it all out. And he also talked about the result of this 1 hour edict.
Kevin and Charlie interviewed each member of my senior staff, came back and reported to me that they all reported that there was no information other than what we already knew. That was obviously a lie. And the emails that I saw for the first time yesterday morning when they were broken in, I believe, the Bergen Record story, proved that that was a lie.
So, what the governor did today in crisis management is the best he could do. See, the Bergen Record came out with these emails that are proof between this senior staffer and a senior political operative who were commiserating on the idea that the mayor of Fort Lee had to pay, and they were going to aggravate him with this, traffic stoppage. It's a terrible, terrible abuse of authority, no doubt. He's not arguing that. He's just saying, I had nothing to do with this, and I'm telling you, heads are going to roll, and two heads have rolled. There are people who are never going to believe Chris Christie didn't know what was going on here with the kind of hardball politics he's involved in, day out in New Jersey. But if his head is clear and his heart is pure, he will continue to just hang himself out there and answer every question. And this has the chance of burying his political future. If anything he said today isn't true, it will. It also has the chance of booing his political future, because at least he has responded. With big scandals, it's not necessarily about what was done, but the cover-up. If he's clear about the follow-up and is able to be consistent, he may look like a crisis manager well past what Barack Obama has done on X number of levels, including Benghazi and the IRS scandal and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned. In the meantime, it's very similar to, while the Nationals will compare it to the president, it's very similar to something that's happening here in Cranston. The Christie-Cranston comparison is simply this. This ticket blitz scandal that we have had to deal with? Last night, Steve Stikos, one of the counselors whose ward was ticket blitzed after he voted no on a police contract, talked about the equity of law enforcement to Eyewitness News.
The law has to be enforced uniformly and fairly, not just in the wards of the councilman who vote against the police contract.
True. He and Paul Arquetto, the other counselor who was targeted by this ticket blitz, were on my program back on December 18th, and we talked about some of the investigative options that were available past what the mayor was talking about.
I don't think any body of government's very good at investigating itself. I mean, there are too many conflicts, there are too many connections.
Dan, the city charter states if a department within the city is not operating efficiently or effectively, the city council does have the right to convene and investigate that department. 5 members have to agree.
Okay, so here's the thing. Missing in that conversation, but present on that show, is a part of that program where I said to them, hey, you know what? Why don't you just create a resolution to ask for a state police investigation? And that's what these guys did last night. It'll take a week or so for the council to vote on that, as I understand, but that's what's in play here. They'll be back next week to talk about this on the program. Where's the comparison? Port Authority, Christie administration in New Jersey, using authority to do something they shouldn't be doing in the public domain to send a political message to the Fort Lee mayor. Cranston, police officers of some ilk ordering a ticket blitz to send a message to 2 counselors that they voted the wrong way on a contract. Very common ground. We'll see if Mayor Fung does the kind of leadership thing that needs to be done. So far, a hybrid of an oversight consultant into an internal affairs investigation doesn't cut it. All right, quickly, let's go to 40 is just the beginning. That's what I wrote because the headline said this today in the Journal. Legislators introduced 40 bills in the first 2 days. Yep, for those of you who think that this is a pace of thousands, you'd be right, because they put thousands of bills in every session, most of which are complete folly and a waste of time and just trying to legitimize their existence, these representatives, instead of tackling the big issues, which is to investigate themselves on things like 38 studios and perhaps get the big idea that'll jumpstart the economy. This kind of busy work, calamari official fish bills and all that kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen, that clog our own legislative arteries and keep us status quo. But that's what they do. And finally, here tonight, on legislative issues, there was a vigil at the State House. Here's the headline. We've been talking about this now for a couple of days. Our renewed call to fight poverty. Here's a picture or two of the vigil at the State House yesterday, where the poverty advocates came together. Jesus said, "There will always be the poor," which must mean that there will always be the poverty advocates. But I leave you with this thought. These chip away minimum wage and other kinds of bills and some of the housing chippy bills are all really either shortchange or gratuitous efforts to end poverty, wouldn't it be smart if we started looking at this thing from another direction and had a vigil for prosperity, for an economic plan that wins for all? We keep looking at this glass half empty. Until we try to fill it all the way, the vigils will just continue. When we come back, Tim Williamson. I want to hear what Tim thinks about the Chris Christie thing and what's going on at the legislature. He's never not exciting. Stay with us.
The end of the session was sort of turned into a little bit personal, and I mean that the members remember that. I mean, as tough as it gets, you have to stay in play. You have to listen to one another.
Oh boy, you know, I had enough to say about that last night. I'm looking forward to seeing what my guest says about that. Here are some of the issues for our General Assembly session that the Providence Journal suggested were the conversations for this year. Pension lawsuit, economy, tolls, 38 studios, et al. So we'll get into that. Tim Williamson, former Deputy Majority Leader.
Senior Deputy Majority Leader.
We always make that clarification. Now, just a lowly private attorney, but still solicitor for the town of West Warwick,
Town
correct?
solicitor, sure, and just being a husband and a dad.
Tell me about the Christie thing before we get into Gordon. Want to play nice? You have to have a take on that.
Well, I thought of two things, and I'm probably dating myself a little bit. Chris Christie's performance today for an hour and a half is either the equivalent of Nixon's checkers speech or Nikita Khrushchev in the UN banging his shoe, because something's going on there. And I don't think he's telling the exact truth. He might think it's the truth from his perspective, but it's not the exact truth.
Well, wait a second. I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, if you've got a situation involving a bridge,
yeah,
and I'm assuming it's the state police, not the local police, that closed the bridge?
the Port Authority.
The Port Authority, okay. If the Port Authority closed the bridge, somebody had to ask the question, why? Why are we closing the bridge? What was wrong with it?
It's well reported.
What was wrong with it? Well, why did why did the bridge have to be closed?
To send a message to the Fort Lee
No,
mayor.
no. But the day it was closed, I know why. The day it was closed, what was the official reason the bridge was closed?
That's still being investigated.
Repairs, ice on it?
They brought in the guy today from the Port Authority, and he took the fifth.
Yeah. So now you know. The question is, did Christie know what was going on for political retribution? And in my experiences, 99 times out of 100, the top guy knows what's going on.
Well, that's why the story is so profound.
Right.
You know, that he says he doesn't, and he didn't. And he said
Well,
that once this thing became public, he brought them all in to cough it up, and they didn't. I mean, he's 11 feet out on a 10-foot board.
Mm.
If he can sustain this, he may be the president of the United States. If he can't, he's all done in 5 seconds.
I don't think that with this type of activity going on in New Jersey and what's going to happen, the aftermath, I don't think he's going to be president of the United States.
You think he's done now?
He has got to rebound in a major
There are a lot of people
way.
think that, because you know what?
Not that he can't do it, and there's enough time. But,
Right.
I mean, this looks like petty politics at the lowest level,
Right.
and now you've got a situation, because a mayor did not, is it Fort Lee, New Jersey?
Yeah.
Fort Lee, New Jersey does not want to get on aboard the Chris Christie bandwagon for president, so they're going to punish him by closing a bridge.
Well, he's reportedly, according to him, as aghast about it as you are expressing. But, you know, the one thing about it is, and my Jersey guys were all in debate today over the whole thing, it ain't Benghazi, confusing to people. It's a basic issue. Lane close, political retribution, and people get that,
But
so
the number
it'll
of
stick.
people, the number of people that drove by those lanes that were closed had to be asking themselves the question:
What the hell's going on here?
Are the lines being painted? Was there an accident?
Right.
Is there
Right.
something
Well,
wrong? Is there a health, safety, and welfare
that's why
issue?
the thing started to percolate up.
All
So
right?
anyway,
but now you got the other thing, because we've got how many police officers or Port Authority law enforcement were on that bridge doing something that particular day, which I'm sure is going to include overtime, when nothing was going on. So a lot of guys got paid additional monies for something that never
yeah,
happened.
well, that's all going to be part of it.
So I think it's interesting, but I also thought that your comparison to the Cranston situation was comical. So I could throw another C on the alliteration.
It is the same kind of thing.
But you,
Is
and
it
this,
not?
this
Do
happens.
you disagree with me?
No, I got to tell you, it happens all the time. It's only when the press finds out that things blow up. But this happens all the time. Political retribution happens in many shape, manner, and form.
Not that you've ever been involved in it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No,
You want to
no.
call a press conference? All right.
What's the statute of limitations? Oh, yeah, there's an. All right.
All right. Well, now that we've gone through that, let me just blow up what we were going to do in this segment. Take a break and have a longer conversation about this thing called the General Assembly in a kinder, nicer environment. Stay with us.
The end of the session was sort of turned into a little bit personal, and I mean that the members remember that. I mean, as tough as it gets, you have to stay in play. You have to listen to one another.
So we generally don't bump in with the same thing, but we never got to it. With all the Chris Christie and Cranston stuff with Tim Williamson, former senior deputy majority leader and still town solicitor in West Warwick. Is he kidding me?
All I can tell you is that
the Speaker of the House,
the 18 years that I spent in the House, I was the poster child for civility and decorum. No, I think
unless you brought it to the tavern, and then that was a whole different conversation.
No, that was the Lord of germanity, whatever was germane or wasn't germane. I think what the Speaker was trying to express, and I know the press has had a run at him, but I think what he's trying to express is the fact that you can go up there with a mindset as to what you want to accomplish as a representative, but don't turn it into a brawl every time you get up to speak. I think that's what I got out of it, because last year, I mean, I paid attention at the beginning of the session, middle of the session, and then at the end of the session with the budget. And there was a lot of public display of anger by House members.
I agree, but I think they were acting out over what the guilt complex is, and that is resolving this 38 studios
Oh, absolutely.
thing. It's all about that, and what he's trying to say is, please, knock it off and don't build any momentum against me, and do not investigate me. That's what I read from it.
Well, there's, I can see that, yes and no, because he's looking at it from, I'm being attacked in my personal life as what I do as a personal attorney, in my relationships and associations, and that's what they're looking at. Separate that from what I do in my political life as a Speaker of the House.
Well, wait a second. The 38 thing has both together.
I understand. And then when the 38 Studios comes in, as a Speaker of the House, it should be, let's investigate this. Let's find out what happened. Let's find out what went wrong. Now, when you go to all the new people that came in 2012 running under the platform of, I didn't vote for 38 Studios. Now they're going to have to run for re-election. And the election term is very short. So now, last year, it's like, okay, we're going to come up with a $2.53 million payment this year, and then next year we're looking at 12.5. Where's that money come from? When you run for re-election, when your little communities,
Secondment River Bridge tolls.
Wait a minute, your little communities depend on state aid to education, state aid to municipalities, state aid to libraries. If the General Assembly deems that they're going to pay back the $12.5 million, where does that come from? Now, every member of the General Assembly is saying, wait a minute, my state aid might get cut in order to pay off this 38 studios. No way in hell.
But here's the thing. In order to make a good decision on 38, they still got to go back and find out how this whole thing happened. I know there's litigation. I know there's an SEC inquiry, and there's all that kind of stuff. But the General Assembly has never policed itself.
No.
And the ultimate police job is to bring the Speaker himself under oath and say, what did you know, when did you know it, and why did we vote blind on this thing?
We had the RISDIC hearings back.
You were in those
We had the
meetings.
RISDIC hearing back in the late 80s as related to the credit union crisis. Same thing. There wasn't as much of an outside or third-party investigation into that. We had the General Assembly looking at it. In this instance, we have the SEC. We have other parties looking at it, so everybody wants to hide behind, well, there's litigation going on, and why duplicate effort?
Right.
Well, in the political world, when you use that as an excuse, it doesn't look good because it looks like you're trying to hide something.
Correct.
But when you look through it, especially as an attorney, you're saying, okay, how do I have you testify under oath for this party when this party's looking at you and this party's looking at you? It would be better to combine all the efforts, but that's never going to happen in government with all the layers. So as your attorney, how do I counsel you? I say, listen, you can't speak to this group before you've spoken to that group. That causes a problem. At the same time, you're trying to construct what's going on inside the building, inside baseball, and then on the outside, what's going on in the political world. So you got all these things coming at you. So now you have this, we have to be nicer, we have to have more civility, we have to have more decorum. Read into it what you want. You and I will disagree, but what I got out of that was basically, you still have to do the people's business. And I know members of the media hate it when a politician says the people's business, but you got to remember, a representative or a senator get sent up there to do something.
right.
And a lot of people
All right,
don't
well,
know what that
listen,
is.
I love his filibusters because they're fascinating and they're exciting. And of course, he's made for radio because TV segments are too short. I will leave your smile. Your smile tells us enough answers on this. But in
Civility
a minute,
and decorum.
yeah, okay. On the issues.
On
So
issues.
other than 38 and cleaning that up, this pension thing is going to
Oh.
be incredible. Give me 30 on the pension thing. Do you think the General Assembly will actually act on the court settlement that's going to be introduced?
I think we have a clear separation of powers issue. We have a law that was passed. If the General Assembly now wants to co-manage this with the judiciary, we've got a problem because separation of powers is supposed to stop that. If the court rules that something's wrong with it, fine, that's great. But I don't think the General Assembly and the court should get in bed together with this because it's not going to give us the answer that we want.
Are we going to get a big idea? All right, thank you very much for tuning in.
The big audit? The big audit?
No, yeah, we might get a big audit, but we're not going to get a big idea.
There's a big idea.
15 seconds. Are you bullish on anything constructive being done for the quality of life in the state of Rhode Island in this legislative session?
I think nationally we're starting to thaw a little bit regarding the economy and unemployment, but the Northeast Corridor is a tough place to do business in the best of times. So.
He'll be back a lot in 2014, I can promise you. Stay with us. Your State of Mind next. Fascinating conversation with Mr. Williamson, don't you think? Reaction, I'd like to have it. Your State of Mind. You can send me an email at stateofmind@myridtv.com, Facebook post, tweet, or just call me at 228-1886 and we'll play your voicemail like this nice lady did.
Ever since I've started watching your program, I've seen a different side of you, which is very pleasant, very warming. I love your sense of humor, much softer than I thought you were. Hope to continue to watch it. Good luck.
Well, that's very nice. You know, I generally don't do well with compliments, but if you say it, I told you I'll air it. Elaine, thank you. You warmed my heart. The kinder, gentler Dan Yorke. We'll see you tomorrow, 7:30 on My State of Mind.